Well, welcome, viewers and listeners, to another edition of CHP Talks. I'm here again with Mr. Lex Acker, who's been on the show before. Lex digs into things and has some new information for us today. Lex, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, Rod.
And for those who maybe missed a previous episode, I'm going to give your introduction again. For those who don't know, Lex has been a chartered financial analyst since 2017. He has over 10 years of experience going through SEC filings of publicly listed companies. He's worked for hedge funds as a research analyst. He studied the CFE, which is the Certified Fraud Examiner U.S. version. That's a 2,000-page curriculum, 2,000 plus pages on financial fraud. He's specialized in financial reporting fraud. And what he does extremely well is to review several years of periodic financial statements, highlight the changes, the odd numerical and textual patterns found in it. And he focuses on changes in financial report notes and text, which provide insight into management intentions and attention. He says the event that woke him up and turned him into a mainstream narrative dissident was his own calculation of excess mortality from Canadian obituaries in October 2021. He's worked closely with nurses in British Columbia. Last year, he was given access to their financial statements, and he analyzed those in the same way that he would analyze a publicly listed company. And today, we're going to talk about a new realm of research that he's done on dead people giving money to political parties and maybe beyond being dead fraudulently. So we'll let him expand on that. Lex, let us know what we need to know about how dead people are giving to left-wing political causes in British Columbia.
Oh my God. It's such a great topic. It's one of my best pieces so far, uh, in terms of exposing corruption. A couple of months ago, someone reached out to me and said, Lex, there's like open data on uh, political contributions. You can download it and you can analyze it. And I thought, well, this is great. I mean, a big chunk of data. So I went to work and I downloaded from BC elections the last 18 years of political contributions to all political parties in British Columbia. So donations to the NDP, to the BC United, the Conservative, the Greens, Social Credit, everything. And it's a big spreadsheet. It was about like close to 800,000 lines. And I love that. That's my wheelhouse. Makes me happy. Um, and one thing like jumped to my face like quite rapidly was like estate donations, like money, being bequeathed to political parties. And I thought like, first of all, like the idea that someone would write in their will like a donation to any political party was absurd to me. Like, why would you give to a political party? There are like better causes than politics in life. You can, well, I mean, your children, you can give like to more worthy causes. And anyway, people give to political parties, but the way they've been doing this in British Columbia is very, very suspicious. And I'm going to start like dropping some numbers here. So I've got data for the last 18 years, like since 2005, right? And I focused mainly on like donations coming from an estate, a deceased person. Um, and I'm going to share a screen here a little bit. We're going to share that screen here. And do you see that, Rod?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. So this is a big overview where it's coming from a spreadsheet. So over the last 18 years, $2.8 million were donated from estates, from dead people, from deceased people, to various political parties in British Columbia. And out of that 2.8 million, what is like really stunning is like 2.7 is going to the BC NDP. So they kind of like have a corner on that market. So 95%, like 95.5% of all estate donations over the last 18 years went to the NDP. So that is a huge red flag. That's not normal. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we look at the BC United, over 18 years, they got like $1,400. That's it. And then we have like the Social Credit Party. This one got like 65,000. There was like one big donation of 64,000. Okay, that makes sense. Like some member like really like the party, they gave them a chunk of change. But then we have the Green Party between 2013 and 2018. They received like some sizable donations, but then they stopped, right? But then that leaves us with like the NDP, like 2.7 million. And that's like ongoing since the last 18 years at least. So that's very suspicious, that distribution of donation. What is it that makes the BC NDP voter so much more inclined to give so much money? That's like a big question. And let's see here. I'm going to stop. No, I don't want to stop.
Lex, you're probably going to get to this. I saw this in your report, but
I just want to stop the share. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2017, correct me if I'm wrong, the BC NDP government changed electoral finance laws. You're planning to get to that because it is kind of a significant part of the story.
It is very, very significant. And I can jump to it like right now and then go back to the top of the article. But I would like to cover like the entire story. Yeah. So around November 30th, 2017, the BC NDP changed the law, the BC elections law, about how much money someone or something can contribute to a political party. So before that change in regime, businesses could give as much as they wanted, individuals could give as much as they wanted. There were no limits. It was the Wild West in terms of like giving money to a political party. For example, like in those years, you could have like a union giving like $500,000. I think, for example, I think it was the steel worker union, if I'm not mistaken, like, gave like $500,000, boom, just like that. That's a lot of money. Yeah. I could see when I analyze those contributions, those donations, typically the NDP would receive from union. That's a known fact, but I just like verified it. Like the data tells it. And then the BC United, the BC Liberals, like would get like most of their donations from businesses. That's also known to the public as well. But what made me look at the law is at some point after November 30th, 2017, non-natural persons were barred to give to political parties. So businesses were no longer allowed to give money. Unions were no longer allowed to give money. And only a natural person, like, living in like not necessarily living, but just like a human, could give to political parties. And there was a limit, and there is still a limit since then, an annual limit. So in 2018, the annual limit like was set at like $1,200. And then like every year it was like increased by maybe 9 or 10%. So in 2023, the limit was about like $1,400 and change. And that's it. And the reason why I started looking into this limit is because like after 2017, I was seeing like estate donations going to the BC NDP that were like 50,000, 20,000, like 100 something thousand, and so on. And I thought, like, well, this is way above the limit. So how can that be? How can that be? Well, the BCNDP, they thought like, oh, we're going to please the public, put a limit so only natural people can donate. They slipped a backdoor. They did. And the backdoor is that if the testamentary instrument was signed before January 1st, 2018, then it can still donate like above the limit. And this is why we're seeing these large donations going to the BCNDP after 2017. They slipped a backdoor because the BCNDP knows very well that it's receiving like a lot of money from estate donations. So they have a pipeline of money coming in. So that's the story about the contribution limit. So where was I with this? Then, several newspapers in like maybe around 2013, 2012, 2010, they covered unusual donations to the NDP, but they were just covering like one single donation, and the story would kind of like end there, right? And what I've done with my post is, well, I went really broad and deep into the topic to give like a big picture of what's going on. So where else I should move to? I'm going to talk about, I would say, financial abuse of vulnerable little old ladies. That's the title of this section.
Okay.
Right? And I'm going to share this again. Share screen. What do we have here?
And the interesting thing about this backdoor that the NDP built in 2017, you had to have the, as you said, the testamentary instruments signed before January 1st, 2018. So the NDP saw this coming. They were able to initiate this in whatever fashion they did, but none of the other parties could now take advantage of this backdoor because the date at which that door closed for new will donation by person's will closed at January 2008.
And if you look at the big picture that I mentioned, like at the top, is that out of the 2.8 million that was donated to all political parties over the last 18 years, 2.7 million went to NDP. So really, like, it does not concern the other parties because they don't receive the estate donations, period. It's not part of their business. Financial abuse of little old ladies. And what do we have here is out of the 2.7 million that the NDP received over the last 18 years, 2.5 million is coming from a small subset of people. I would say 18 donors. So that's a very small number of wills, and deceased people gave most of that money. That's 2.5 million. That's about like 92% of everything that went to the NDP through testaments. And when I look at the gender of these donors, out of these 18 top estate donors, well, 66% were female. So how's that? As like, should it be like half and half? Right? Why is there a skew on the gender of the donor? It's a big question. I mean, to me, I already have my mindset on this. I think like there are like unscrupulous individuals who figure out that an isolated old lady has no relationship, is isolated, and they coax her into, writing in like donations to the party. when they're very, very vulnerable. That looks very wrong to me. When I work in the financial industry, in the investment business, we have like what we call like a vulnerable client rules, and an investment firm when say like they have like a client who's above like 65 years old, when there's a withdrawal or a transfer of fund, they ask more questions. They want to make sure that a relative is not abusing them, right? So we should have like the same thing here with the nation, the same kind of safety. There's a so yeah, I listed like estate donations above $15,000, and that gave me like a subset of 18 donors, and 12 out of 18 were female. And then after that, I tried to figure out like where these donors were coming from, and then I found a geographical pattern. They appear like out of so there were like 18 very large donors above $15,000. 14 of them I traced to I was able to trace where they're coming from. And out of these 14, 10 are coming from Vancouver Island. And out of these 10, 5 are coming from Nanaimo, where I live. So there is also like a geographical concentration. So there's an actor at play, or maybe a few actors that are like trying to get money from dying people, wealthy people. Where else is this going? Well, this is of these 5 large donors on Vancouver Island. 2 of them I managed to figure out the executor. The executor is Mayor Leonard Krug of Nanaimo, a former MLA, right, for many terms. And he was the executor of one of the largest donors. Like that was the estate of Olive Fairbairn, and she gave like $465,000, right? And then like there was Helen Cole, she gave $15,000. And the estate donation of Helen Cole is very, very suspicious. And I'm gonna. So this is what happened with the estate donation of Helen Cole. It was donated. It arrived to the. It was donated not to the BC NDP but to the constituency of Parksville-Qualicum. The constituency of Parksville-Qualicum is the very first riding that Leonard Krug, the executor of the donation, won in the 90s. That estate donation arrived on July 31st, 2017. And it was right on time to pay off a debt that the campaign of Sue Powell had. Like, so there was some kind of election that year in 2017. Sue Powell was a candidate, a BC NDP candidate. Our campaign had a debt of about $14,000 that was due by mid-August 2017. And that estate donation came right into the chest of that campaign, to pay off a debt of $14,000. So that's there's a little bit more detail on that particular event, but it's a very suspicious transaction. It's very suspicious. And then where else can I move to? Then I have another section here, and I titled it like it's a crime scene of financial abuse. So what am I saying here? Is like, oh yes, between 2018 and 2023, we have estate donations to the NDP that are above the annual limit. Remember that At the end of 2017, we have an annual limit of $1,200 index, like every year by inflation, right? And then we're still seeing like above limit estate donations to the NDP. And 90% of these donations above limit were from women. Again, little old ladies. What's going on? It's a red flag. And this is how I discovered that this is how it is by looking into this. That's how I discovered the backdoor about the limit, like for a testament written before January 1st, 2018. I was looking into it and I found the answer. I contacted like BC Election. So I have an email from BC Election and they said like, well, Lex, there's this backdoor. And that's how, you know, that's why you're seeing these things. And then I found another pattern that's very suspicious. On July 2nd, 2020, we have a donation from an estate of 20,000 even. And then on July 14th, about like a year later, we have another 20,000 from a different estate, right? So I mean, these coincidences are like they're obvious, like it's a red flag. There's something bizarre here. It's not supposed to happen. In terms of like donations of 20,000 even, I went into the non-estate donations. Like I have 18 years of history, so I went through it, 800,000 lines of it. And in 2017, when contributions were still allowed from non-natural persons, like from businesses and so on, I found 11 donations coming from 11 corporations to an amount of $1,818.18. When I see that kind of periodic number, I'm looking for a bigger number, and it's 20,000. So you know, $1,818.18 times 11 is like ballpark 20,000. It's actually like 19,999.98. So somehow we have this coincidence of this $20,000 being donated to the BC NDP. To me, it looks like it's a fee. It's a fee for something. It's bizarre. Like in 2020, we have it like in 2020 and 2021, it's coming through like separate estate donations 1 year apart. In 2017, we have a $20,000 coming through, being split like in 11 even chunks through 11 corporations, right? So these are patterns that I've picked up in the donation data. The next topic here that I want to talk about, I'm going to stop the share and start it again. So give it a screen time here. So the estate donations, I look at the number of estate donations every year to the BC NDP over the last 18 years. Between 2005 and 2016, in terms of number of estate donations, it's between like 1 and 29, right? And so that's what's going. And in terms of the number of unique donors, we have fewer unique donors. So it means that these estates are making multiple contributions, multiple donations. So for example, in 2013, we have 25 estate donations, but we have only like 9 unique estate donors. So some of these estate donors are doing like multiple donations. Again, it's like if I write my will and I'm donating to a recipient, I'm going to write 1 check, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 9. Like that's how I would do it. That's what I think a reasonable person would do it. So the fact that we have like more estate donations and fewer unique estate donors, and that's a flag again. But then the pattern like becomes like really disturbing in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Very disturbing. All right. So I'm going to start the share again.
Yes.
And we're gonna look at this. All right. So in this chart, I have the number of estate donations per year to the BC NDP over the last 18 years, right? And as I said, 2005, 2016, it oscillates between 1 and 29, but typically like, 7, 12, and so on per year, estate donations. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, we have a massive spike of estate donations to the BC NDP. So in 2017, we have 256 estate donations. In 2018, we have 155. And in 2019, we have 192, right? And then in 2020, it goes back to normal to 28, 20, and then 4, 5, and 2 in 2023. It reverts back to its old pattern, right? But 2017, 2018, and 2019 is like really suspicious. Now I look at the number of unique estate donors over those 18 years. And it's like, in the first period of like from 2005 to 2016, the number of unique donors is between 0 and 9 per year, no more than that. Still a lot in my mind. But then in 2017, we have a massive spike of new unique donor, 35. 2018, 21, 2019, 19, right? So we see that spike of estates just donating to the BC NDP. That's like, to me, it looks like ghosting. And I'll explain. Ghosting is the theft of the identity of a deceased person. It's a crime. So is this what happened with the BC NDP? I don't know. But it looks like it. It's completely out of whack. The pattern, the distribution of it doesn't make sense.
Well, if I might interject just one thought there, Lex, and that is the NDP knew exactly what they were going to do in terms of making these changes to campaign finance. And
absolutely,
because they knew ahead of time, they may have gone on on a campaign of encouraging their members to make these testamentary disbursements. Not that they notified any of the other parties to say this change is coming. You might want to approach your members. So it was at the very least, they made use of this information. They knew what they were going to do, and they maybe twisted a few arms to get the contributions. But it sure looks like in 2017 that they did a major campaign to convince their members to give, and they had to sign it again. They had to sign it before 2018. Of course, that's why the numbers would go down now over time, because if they might have even signed a will in 2017 giving money to the NDP, but if they made a change to their will and made out a new will in the following years, then they would be unable to give. So that kind of explains why the numbers would go down. But 2017, they raked in the contributions. It's pretty interesting.
Something happened in 2017, 2018, 2019. There's a massive problem with estate donations going to the BC NDP. And so if I total these unique estate donor in those 3 years, that's like 75 new estate donors in 2017, 2018, 2019 combined. Now, I've looked at every single one of them, right? And roughly 50 of those 75 new estate donors over those 3 years they were set up on periodic monthly debit plan. Like the donation was going like clockwork every month on the 5th or the 6th of the month. Now, this is not the kind of instruction that a dead person would give. That's the behavior of a person who's alive. Right? There's a problem here. And sometimes I would look at one of these estate donors in those years, and there would be like, say, like $50 on the 5th of the month, like for like 12 months. And then during those 12 months, there would be like the odd donations of like a few $100 here and there. So it's completely out of whack. To me, it looks like there's some kind of scheme to circumvent the contribution limits. I don't know exactly like what's the full intent here, but the donation pattern is highly suspicious. So I've already explained like what ghosting is, and ghosting is a form of identity theft using the accounts of dead people. And the fact that we're seeing like a massive spike of new estate donor, that's problematic. And also the fact that these estate donations, they were set up like on a monthly plan, even worse.
Yeah.
So there's there's another donation pattern that I want to talk about. And this one is not about estate donation. It's just like regular donations, right? This is how it goes. When a political party reports donations of any kind to BC elections, if the donation is above $250, then the name of the donor has to be reported. So I've actually downloaded like not only like the contribution data from BC elections, I've also downloaded the financial statements of every political party in BC, and I've looked through those. And you see a line that aggregates donations below $250 because there's too many of them, so they aggregate them. It makes sense. I have no problem with that. If a donation is above $100, it has to be made by electronic means. So you can do like an e-transfer, you can write a check, that's traceable. Credit card, that's traceable, right? If it's below $100, then it could be cash, right? So looking at the total amount of money that's going into the BC NDP, that is under $250, and the number of donors that have donated under $250. These are two numbers that are disclosed in the financial statements. Well, you can calculate the average donations under 250. And I did that, and I graphed it. I'm going to share the graph pretty soon. And what we see here is that in 2018 to 2021, there's 4 years where the average donation under $250 converges on just below $100, which is the limit where you accept cash or you don't accept cash, right? So let's share that screen. That's another weird thing that I found. Share. Here it is. So this section is about the average $250 donation or less to the BC NDP. And it shows, and unexpected stability over 4 years. Let's go down to the chart here. See if I can increase. No, I can't. So the orange line is the yearly average donation under 250. That's going to the NDP. And then the aqua line, which is the new color of the BC United, is shown just below it. And we see that there's some seasonality, but well, it corresponds with like election years, right? So on an election year, you have like lots of political interest, so people are donating more. So you have more donors, so that will like increase the denominator, and then the average donation under 250 goes down. So let's look at the BC United aqua line here, and we see like in 2011, it's kind of low. I think that was an election year. I'm not sure. 2017 was an election year. That one I remember. It's quite low. 2021 was an election year. It's quite low. The average donation under 250 is quite low. It's because you got lots of donors. Now, what is very unexpected with respect to itself, you look at the orange line, and you see that it fluctuates, like, you know, it's like 92.70, that's the average donation under 250 in the year 2009. And then it goes down to, say, like $53 in 2011. That's the average donation under 250. And then, like, in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021, you look at the average donations to the BC NDP, and we have numbers like $99.75, 103.71. We have like 97.03, and then in 2021 we have like $99. That's the average donation under 250. Well, these four numbers in consecutive years converges spot on to just below $100. Okay, and $100 that's a special number written into the BC elections law. Like, you know, above $100, the donation can only be done through like traceable electronic means. Below 100 could be cash as well, right? So this is a very odd pattern. We're not supposed to be to see this, and that's why I call it like it's unexpected, right? That's a red flag. So that was an important discovery. What else? We can talk about the donation history we can contrast the donation history of money going to the NDP and the BC United, right?
Yeah, there was a reason why they changed the law in 2000.
Exactly. We want to see that reason. What is the motivation for the electoral reform in 2017? And people will think like, well, the BC NDP cared about, like, you know, I don't know, did the BC NDP cared about reducing, like, you know, influence peddling and things like that? No, it was about reversing their financing disadvantage, right? And I think I'm still sharing the screen here.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sharing the screen here. And in this table, what I did is these numbers are, it's all the contributions going to the NDP or the United in a single year. So we start with like 2005. The NDP like received like 6.2 million in donation. The Liberals, now the United, they received like close to 14 million. When you take the ratio of these things, you can, you know, I calculated that the financing advantage that the Liberals or the United they had in 2005 was like 125%. They were able to raise like 125 more money than the NDP. And so that was the case. That was the case all the way until like 2017, 2018.
And in
right?
general, the difference I think you're pointing to in your post, and by the way, we want to make sure people know where to find your text, your post on your Substack. But the difference is that corporations or businesses were giving more than the unions in the sense, if you look at it very
Yes,
simplistically, the BC United, former Liberal Party, was getting more from businesses, and the NDP was getting more from unions. But the balance was that the Liberal Party was getting more in general from those two sources. By
yes,
you point out in your article, by shutting the door to both those sources, the NDP could appear to be a good guy, put on the white hat and say we're cleaning up election finance here. But what they actually were doing was shifting the balance of power to,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. They reduce like the absolute amount of money going into political parties, but coming out of this, they now they add like an advantage, a financing advantage, and then we see that financing advantage like becoming more apparent like in 2019 and onward, right? So the election reform of 2017 was about it was about like turning the table on financing. It was not about reducing influence peddling or access. And when I look at those 800,000 lines of donations, I could see that you have like businesses donating to both parties, right? Like donations were about buying access. It was clear. Like some unions were donating to both parties. I mean, unions were mostly donating to the NDP, but some of them, like they donated to both parties. It's about buying access and favors. So that's the motivation in one picture, the motivation behind the election reform of 2017. And then I discovered something else. Election BC, which is the government branch department in charge of, I would say, overseeing and regulating how our elections are performed. They are currently auditing the four political parties, right? They are currently auditing the Green, the BC United, the BC NDP, and the Conservative Party, all of them. Now, that was a screenshot as of like last December. And I think my opinion is that Election BC is auditing the four main parties, and they're auditing like the Conservative and the Green simply not to single out the legacy, the parties, right? They didn't want to single out like, the NDP and the BC United. So they say, okay, well, we're going like to audit like every single one of them. Look, to make it look like it's even. But I mean, the Conservative Party like is a resurrected party, doesn't have much recent history. There's not much to audit there. I don't think they're going to find anything. I mean, the Green Party, I doubt it. Uh, the dirt is really like with the NDP and quite possibly like the BC United as well, former Liberals. So that's another bit.
yeah. Lex, I
Uh,
want to ask you a question here about how you get onto a topic. Like you are a research analyst, specializing in analyzing and reporting on financial fraud as revealed through numbers. But somebody has to get the inspiration to look into a particular matter. Like these things don't pop out at everybody. And there's a couple of verses I'm going to mention, and then I'll let you speak on the topic. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "The glory of God is to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search it out, to uncover, to turn over the rocks, and to find out what's underneath." And it also says of God that he will expose the hidden works of darkness. And so I'm thankful that you're doing this research, but how do you, what triggers you to decide to look at a particular topic? How do you get led to investigate a particular topic?
When, well, of course, like there's a lot of like analytical skills going into this. So I have like, I get curious about a chunk of data, some kind of data. Like it can be like numerical or textual, right? But then like not everything can be reasoned. Not everything can flow logically, from, if A, then B, then C, and so on. There's a kind of knowledge that's inspired. It's intuitive. It's intuition. It's like it's not derived through logic. It appears to the mind just like that. That's intuition. It's like you know something, but you cannot explain it logically, right? So it's intuition. But intuition can be cultivated. It's not like a magical power. It's not like this. I think intuition can be cultivated. The way to do this is to have a bit of introspection and pay very close attention to your inner speech, how you talk to yourself, right? And when you listen to your own internal speech, every time you use the first person, like I, mine, or me, right? So this is the kind of speech that you want to put distance from and kind of like detach yourself from that kind of attention. And when you do that, it creates a void in the mind, in the heart. When there's a void, well, the universe doesn't like voids, so it fills it up with intuition, right? So that's the inner mechanic, in my own words, about how I get these intuitions. And I do this a lot with financial statements and any other topic that I decide to research and I become curious about, right? What else can I say about intuition? Um, I could say you want to be very, very honest with in your life, right? And when you tell the truth, always, and when you are very mindful not to overstate or understate what you perceive, what you see, and you're not trying to um, advance your own preferences, right? Then you become very, very attuned to your own intuition, to your own intention. You're attuned very close to your most inner intentions and motivations. The disadvantage of living like this is that you're unable to manipulate your environment. You're unable to manipulate and deceive your environment for your own short-term interests. That's why people lie. People lie because it works. You can deceive your environment to get what you want and avoid what you don't want. But the cost is your capacity to discern, and the cost is also intuition. You're foregoing the opportunity of having like non-linear knowledge appearing to your mind. The long-term benefit to it is that you become extremely sensitive to your environment and to the information that flows to you. And it's very hard to be deceived, right? So with a very strong dedication to truth, even to yourself first, and then to your environment, you you gain the ability to see the intentions converging to you, or in your direction, or in your environment. So I think that's why, when I became a chartered financial analyst, I naturally like gravitated towards like fraud and financial reporting fraud, because that's what I see. I see deception like fast by looking at changes and so on. And what's at the top of my mind is intention. Like what is the intention of the phenomena that's in front of me? So that's to explain like how do I come up with these articles, right?
Very good. So excellent. I believe God has given you a gift, which, as you mentioned, was developed through honesty, through your intention, of following the facts where they lead.
Yes.
And so, in my view, then, God has directed your steps onto this topic, as onto many others that you've spoken about in the past. Where do people find your Substack? What's the name of your Substack, Lex?
The Substack is titled Truth, Investing, and Freedom. I didn't write much about investing. I only wrote one post about investing. It was about the forestry industry. I covered superficially like four lumber companies. I'd like to write more about investing. It's just that right now, the information that I'm receiving is about corruption stories. And I'm having fun doing it. So I like to look into corruption.
We appreciate it, and we need the land needs to be cleared of corruption, and you're doing your part for that. I want to also mention we've talked about a lot of other political parties in British Columbia. I'll just mention as a plug that we also have a provincial political party in British Columbia. It's the Christian Heritage Party of BC. And we like living people to make donations to us.
Yes.
Because those are the only people that can give to us. And
Yes.
so you can visit our site at CHP, chpbc.ca is our provincial website. And folks, especially living in BC, are welcome to visit us there, or visit Lex's Substack at Truth, Investing, and Freedom.
Well, that's the title of the Substack, but the URL, the domain name is freedomandinvesting.substack.com. So freedomandinvesting.substack.com. And you can also just look up my name, Lex Acker, Lexacker, Substack. And then you will land on one of my posts. When you land on one of my posts, there will be a pop-up that asks you to become a subscriber. Don't be afraid. You don't have you can be a subscriber for free. You just say no thanks. And then in terms of you don't have to pay me anything. I mean, a couple of people have given me some money. I have but I don't make much money out of this. It's really for fun and to also showcase some of my skills. So that's why I do this. Yeah, I'm easy to find. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Just Google my name, find my LinkedIn profile, and you can find my contact information. If someone wants to reach out to me and you have some information you would like me to look into, you're most welcome. For example, this story about dead people donating to the NDP. Well, someone reached out to me and brought my attention to it. And that person who reached out to me, well, he's a former public servant, right? And I just want to mention to or overlords in Victoria that, you've assaulted a large fraction of your workforce, and they have an axe to grind, and they're reaching out. So, they're reaching out to me and to other people.
Yeah.
So,
very good. And we'll put the links to your Substack also in show notes, both on our audio and video podcasts. And Lex Acker, very much appreciate you coming on our show once again and bringing us important information. Continue with your good work. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Rod.
God
See you
bless.
again. Bye.